remember a particular instance when I went with John Paul Jackson to Poland, and I think it was in 2004. We were traveling over there to teach the dream courses. I went with these young kids, and we went out to this little pub, and we were sitting outside, and they were asking me all these questions about dreams and about things that are happening, and I was interpreting some of their dreams. And these two drunk guys, they came by our table, and they were making catcalls at the girls, and they were just being obnoxious. And one of the guys stood up and he says, "Hey, we got this American here with us. You're bothering us. Leave us alone. We're trying to talk to him." His language, you could tell that he was mad and he was getting on them. So we were trying to talk, and they just came, and they were still interrupting us. And finally, this girl stood up, and she's like, "You know, you guys are bothering us. You need to leave us alone." And in the midst of that whole conversation, I hear a voice of the Lord, says, "Ask him if he had a dream last night." I'm thinking, I'm not going to ask him if he had a dream last night. I said, I'm not going to ask a drunk guy if he had a dream last night. I know what drunk guys dream. And so the Lord was, in the midst of that conversation, still compelling me to ask him if he had a dream. And in my mind, I'm thinking, because I'm still learning how to interpret dreams, I'm thinking, but Lord, what if I get the dream wrong? What if I can't interpret it? It's going to make me look bad, because here I am teaching the class on dreams, and these guys are students. What if I don't know how to interpret that dream? So that whole conversation is going on while he's telling us to leave us alone. So finally, I said, "Ask the man if he had a dream last night." And you should have seen her face. She was kind of like shocked. She's like, "Okay." She says, "The American wants to know if he had a dream last night." And he goes, "Yeah, I had a dream last night." And he said, "I had this dream last night that I was in this prison. I was locked in this prison. It was dark and it was just gloomy." And he said, "I was in this prison. I've been locked in this prison for a while." And he says, "This man would come in, and I had a sword, and I would stab him and I'd kill him. And another man would come, and I'd stab him and I'd kill him." And he said, "This happened all night long, where men would come into my prison, and I would stab them and I'd kill them." And he says, "And I enjoyed every bit of it. That's my dream I had last night." And so I'm just looking, I'm thinking, that's why I didn't want to ask you if you had a dream last night, because I was clueless about this dream. And so I'm sitting there. All the students are looking at me. They're looking at me because he says, "Hey, you asked me if I had a dream. I just told you the dream. What does it mean?" And so I had this pressure on me. And it was like that moment of silence. It was like an hour. All these eyes were on me. And I'm thinking, Lord, I have no clue what this dream is. So like a good teacher, what do? You ask your students, "What do you guys think the dream means?" So I asked them, they all looking at me with this blank face on their face of shock, and they're like, "We don't know." And they're like, no one knew what the dream means. And so it bought me a little bit of time. So I just went in faith. I said, "This dream is speaking about your life." I just took a step of faith, and as soon as I said that, revelation came. And it says that something happened to you that put you on this path of hatred and anger and resentment, and has locked you in this prison of darkness. And I knew that he was impacted at a very young age, and it locked him in this prison. I said, "You've been given a gift by God to give life to men rather than death." And he just started crying, and he just got impacted. And we ended up leading him to the Lord. And he said that he was going to go and him and his buddy were going to get drunker. I don't know how they're going to get much drunker, but they were going to get drunker, and they were going to go and break into houses and do harm to people. But because of this encounter, he decided not to do that. And I remember right after that, I was feeling really good and excited and encouraged. And this buddy says, "I want to talk to the American." And so I was like, did the Matrix to him. I was all pumped up because I just had that good encounter. So he comes over, and I said, my couple people interpreters, he says, "Tell the American I don't believe in God." So I turned to her and I said, "Well, tell him I don't have time to talk with him. Go on, I'm done." So we get up and walk away, and these Polish people were just like shocked. And they stopped me. It's like, "Recie, you got to help me understand. You had this one great encounter with this guy, but this guy, you wouldn't give him the time of the day. You just brushed him off and said you didn't want to talk to him, and let's go." And I said this, you have to learn this principle. I said, I didn't have time to minister to a man's soul Because when you minister to men's soul, it brings temporal change. When you minister to men's spirit, it brings eternal change. So that's the difference between the two. You had one guy that was the Lord, spirit to spirit, and God impacted him, which will bring eternal change. This guy was coming from a soulish perspective, and he was trying to argue with me with his mind. I didn't have 45 minutes to deal with man's mind and spend dealing with his soul, which brings temporal change. And you have to understand that principle.